What's going on, everyone? I'll be starting in just a few minutes. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. What a rough week it's been. Wow. Whew. Started out with our Discord server getting destroyed, and we ended up with a lot more engagement and a lot more people going on. Let me just make sure the audio is all good. Just a test. Okay, I think we're all set. All right, welcome to the stream, guys. So we're gonna do 3 things today. First one is we're gonna do a Q&A, quick Q&A, 15 minutes, project search type thing. I'm gonna code for 35 minutes. I'm gonna actually do some project. Hopefully I can get that project from the chat, but if I don't, I have a backup plan. And then we'll follow that up with 10 minutes of Q&A. We can chat about the project or something else that people wanted to chat about. Okay, so I have one question so far. How did I get started with coding? Well, I got started a long time ago, about 24 years ago. And back in the day of America Online and things like that, there was, the internet was not really policed. You could do a lot of different things with coding. At that time, it was Visual Basic 3. And that's kind of where I got my start. I used to make programs in Visual Basic 3, and that's kind of where it all began. Okay, so wait for some more questions. So let's talk about the state of the channel too. So of course Discord got destroyed earlier this week, but we've more or less recovered. We got about half the people back, but twice the engagement, and that made for that was really nice to see. It was great to see everybody just running back to the Discord server to hang out and act like nothing ever happened. So that was really great. As a Node developer, what do you think of Ryan Dahl's new project, Dino? I've not actually heard of that project. I'll have to check that out. How do you find new modules to import? That's a good one. Okay, so somebody asked, how do you find new modules to import? So I'm assuming you mean Python. But I guess it's true for Node.js. Usually when I'm thinking about what modules I need for my project, I just assume that it's already out there. And oftentimes it already is. So I usually do a quick Google search. You can check, like if you're a Node.js developer, you can check an npm and you can check for a particular module. And Python, you can do the same. What languages do I use in my professional career? So despite what the channel might make you think, I'm not actually a Python developer as a primary trade. I'm actually a Node.js developer. And that's primarily what I'll use for almost all my projects these days. What do I think of Jupyter Notebook? I do have a project right now that involves a lot of Jupyter Notebook work. I've never used it. The guy that does use it, he uses it because he wants to, he wants more of like a web-based kind of approach. So he has Jupyter Notebook on there that he uses. And I think it's a neat tool. I didn't realize what it did at first, but after he showed me kind of the benefits of Jupyter, I thought it was kind of a neat tool. It's not right for me just because I want to just use Atom and just get it done. But I could totally see why it's useful. The best way to become good at Python is you got to start with understanding the basics. And the Python manual, it's kind of a tough read, but it's worthwhile to go. The Python manual has the entirety of the documentation for the language. It has all the standard. Just a second. Has all the standard libraries, ready to go, and there's documentation for each of those standard libraries. So you can, if you want to know about JSON, all you do is you go to the Python modules, section of the documentation. You open up JSON. And then it'll tell you every single method and every single property that's part of that particular import. So that's really how you can get really great at Python. And command of a programming language is really how well you can approach a problem and complete a problem in that language. And the best way to approach it and complete it, the quickest is to just have a firm grasp, on that particular language. Well, it's going. What do you think about Angular? It's actually funny that's coming up right now. So Angular had kind of, there's Angular 1, and then there's Angular 2, which was totally different from Angular 1. And then it kind of jumped up to Angular 4 and then 5, which used TypeScript and kind of really took the whole concept of single page applications and built the library around that. I still have a project in Angular 1. I thought Angular 1 was cool. It had the two-way data binding. That was sort of advanced for the time. But I'm generally not a fan of single page applications to begin with. So it would follow that I'm not particularly keen to, Angular 4 and 5. Ooh, favorite Atom packages. Yes, so I have a few. The first is Minimap, which is it's a little thing on the right side. You can see it here. It's this little guy over here where you can quickly scroll between your code. I also like Beautify, of course, because I can just take any file. I could just dump. Actually, we're gonna use Beautify later. I could just take any JSON, I can drop in a document and just beautify it, and it'll just make it all nice. I like the tabs to spaces because I'm a spaces guy, not tabs. I, of course, like all the language highlighting. I don't care for all that. Like, I don't want it to be an IDE. I don't need it to actually autocomplete. I don't need it to autocomplete the whole thing. I just need it to kind of just guide me towards it and fill in variable names, fill in function names, things like that. But I don't need it to be like a total, IDE where it's tracking all the files, and if I make a method call, it can go up in the chain and find things. So I don't really bother with that. All right. Do you do more front end or back end work? I would say I do a blend of both. I'm just doing the back end stuff, but I'm quite capable on the front end as well. If anybody's looked at the mockups in Discord for engineerman.org, you can see that I'm sort of well versed in both back end and front end. If I had to choose which one I like the best, though, I would prefer to do the back end stuff. Have you tried creating any games in Unity? Is C# hard to learn? Yeah. No, I've not really gotten into any game development. The only game development I've really gotten into is with a thing called Cocos 2DX, which is a 2D library, which is primarily C++. I tried that out. I'm not very artsy. Like, if I was to ever do some sort of art project or game or something like that, I would partner with somebody who's smart on the art side. Somebody like Senior Ducky. I'm positive I could write the code for the game. I can't do the artsy stuff. Is C# harder to learn than Java? I don't think it is. I was a C# developer for about 7 months in 2012, and I found it to be a lot easier. I was able to get going quicker. They're basically the same language in that if you put Java code next to C# code that does the exact same thing, you'll find that oftentimes there's one-to-one analog, function calls that map between the two. Let's see. I'm a SharePoint admin currently in Azure. Okay, so tips for learning databases. That's actually an easy one. So the best tip I can say is learn SQL. Just SQL. You don't have to apply it to MySQL. You don't have to apply it to Postgres. You don't have to apply it to SQL Server. You just have to learn the original SQL, because if you learn SQL, you're going to find that it's pretty much the same across everything. Now, each platform, of course, SQL Server has its own stuff it can do. MySQL has things that it can do that others can't, and so on and so forth. But 95% of it is just going to be that general SQL. Do you know RenPy? It's called making of. No, I do not know RenPy. This is a good question, whoever asked this. What's the hardest project I've ever tried to do? So for a long time, I was always trying to take on increasingly challenging projects, because after a while, you get bored building forms. on the web. You get bored making tables and databases, and eventually you got to find something to kind of quench your thirst for challenge. The hardest project I've ever done is I tried to build my own programming language. It was so hard. It was without question the hardest project I ever took on. And when I did that, I did it two ways. I did it the wrong way and the right way. And when I say wrong way, I attempted to basically do it how I thought it should have been done without actually looking at how it should have been done. So I was writing a lexer, which would, just look at every character and determine how it should execute the code based on that. When that failed flat on its face, then I did it the right way with Lex and Yak and like LLVM as backend tooling. And when I did that, it made a lot more sense. What's my age? I'm 33. What do you think about Coder Cloud IDE? I think I know what you're talking about there. I think it's just an online IDE. There's quite a few of them. I'm not sure if that one has a particular standout. What were you going to call your own programming language? I called it Helix, the little language that could. Have you tried to speed up Python by injecting C code? Yeah, that's actually a good question. So I like that one because a lot of these languages, I think Python's included in this, certainly Node.js is they allow you to call out to code that runs faster. It's not required that you say run all your code in JavaScript, for instance. You can write C++ code, and then you can register that as a module in Node.js, and you can call out to that code as you need it. So it's kind of a way to get the best of both worlds, which is to say you can develop fast in a dynamic language like JavaScript, but then you have the flexibility to call out to this high-performing code like C++. Okay, a couple more questions, and then we're gonna do some coding. What's your first programming language that you learned? The very first one ever is going to be QBasic. And back in the day, they had little classes for kids, of course. I'm like 9 at this point. And one of the projects was this little car racing game in the terminal, and it was built in QBasic. All right, one more question, and then I'm going to do some coding. What's your favorite open source project that I worked on or used yourself? My absolute favorite open source project, I think, is probably going to be, and I hope these guys are listening right now, but it's Sequelize.js. It is just it's an object relational mapper, an ORM, for Node.js, and it is top-notch development, top-notch. And I tried to work on it a little bit. It's arguably my favorite project I think I've ever used or contributed to. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of, I don't see a whole lot of project suggestions here, so I have a backup plan for a project, so we're just gonna do that now. So the plan was, people have been asking a lot about, oh, hold on, I gotta make myself significantly less big because I'm really large now. Okay. Let's take that down to there. Okay, so people have been asking me a lot about web scraping and how to kind of get data off sites, programmatically. And web scraping plays an important role in kind of any project. So I thought I would build a sort of web scraper today. Now I'm not going to be like going through the trees or anything. What we're going to do is we're going to try to find a site that has some, that's basically loading their data async, and we're going to use their web services to kind of do something with it. So I found a site. There's a site near me. It's called FlipKey. Make this big. So I live near the beach, as some of you may know, and what this site does is this site tracks rentals for kind of the beach area. And so I thought it'd be fun to write a program that takes all their data and just takes the average of the price per night. So, how would you approach that kind of project? So for me, the first thing is I'm going to look at what's the end state. The end state is I want a single value that is the average of all the prices per night on some of these rentals. So once I know what my end state is, I can just work backwards from that. So if I know I need the end average, I then now know I need a number of prices to average. And to get the prices to average, I need to get the data from this page. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at this page and analyze kind of what's happening in the background. So I know they have an infinite scroll. So let me get my Chrome console here. So I can make this bigger. There we go. Okay, so I know on the site, if I come over here and I start scrolling, I start getting these calls over here. And every time I scroll to the bottom, it keeps loading more data. From a data scraping standpoint, this is fantastic news, because when things are being loaded every time, you can get access to that data. So in this case, I'm concerned with these. Zoom.11. Page 2, page 3, page 4. And if you look at these things, they're all basically exactly the same, with one difference, is this page number. So one is a page 2, one is a page 3, one is a page 4. And if we look at their URL, we can gather a couple things about what they're doing. Index.json, so we know it's going to be JSON. We can also confirm that by just looking at the response. And then the destin, that's sort of the area that I'm in. And then this ID, perhaps that's just an ID for, I don't know, the city. And then Zoom.11, having done a little Google Maps work, I know that Zoom 11 is roughly the amount of map they're showing here. If I zoomed out once, it would probably give me Zoom 10, or Zoom 9, or something like that. So I know that these are a couple of variables I can change. I could change this to any zoom level, and I can change the page number to any page number I want. So the first thing I would do in this case is I would see if I can just consume this data. So I can copy it. I can get a terminal out. I could just type curl. Oops. Didn't copy. Copy the data, type curl, paste it in, and then, oh man, look at it all. So I know this is all data that I need. I know there's probably some pricing data in here. So the next step for me would be to basically go to, I got a little folder here. So I'm just going to take that data. I'm just going to write that data out to, say, properties.json. So I'll move this out of the way. Remember I said we're going to use Beautify? So here's the power of Beautify, is this all looks like complete garbage, but if I do Control-Shift-P and I type Beautify, then magically I have this perfect JSON. It just suddenly appears. So if you don't have that package for Atom, go ahead and download that. So now it's just a matter of just analyzing, what's here. So I got an object, I got filters. That's probably not super useful to me, but all these are. I could see that all these are exactly the same. So I'm just looking to where it starts. So results is what I need. So then it's a matter of just looking at, how do I access results? So if I come up top here, it looks like that's the first thing. So it's just going to be root of the JSON object dot result gives me an array of listings. And now I can analyze what's in these listings. So it gives me a lat long. I could take that data if I wanted. It gives me, what else does it give me? What I'm concerned about is the price. So daily price right here, it's 56 bucks. Sorry, 76 bucks. So that's what I need. I need the root of the directory, root of the file, dot result, and then for every result I need to take the daily price, I need to strip out the $, I need to convert it to an int, and then I need to sum an average. So let's do that. So to make to make something that requests data from from an HTTP service, you would need some module. So for Node.js, that module is going to be something called request. So request promise npm, come in here. Let's grab that version. Piece of cake, right? Do npm install, and it gives me my request module. Great. So now we'll make a thing called average price.js. So got to request that, got to require request promise. So now what we're going to do really is just do a quick test. So, we'll say result equals request. And then method is get. URL is whatever was over here. Page 1. And then we'll do, it's JSON. We'll do simple. Actually, I don't think I need to do that. So the intent here is really just to get the, I want to get one set of results and just make sure that actually works for what I'm doing. So I don't know if this is right. There's always some debugging that occurs. So I'm just going to do node average price. And it's going to tell me that, unexpected identifier. So it's because I'm not in an async function. So I can make a self-executing async function. That should work now. But it doesn't. Oh, okay. So request has a peer dependency. So I need not just request promise, but I also need the request module. 2.88.0. I need to add that to my deal here. So now I have that. All right, look at that. We're getting some data. So we've got some data from that call. So that's good. So result is now all this data. So remember we said we need result.data. So run it again. Okay, it's undefined. So, what's up with that? So here it's time to do debugging. So maybe I'll run it with less just to see. So I'm wondering if I wonder what's actually wrong here. And hey, you know what? It's fine to Google. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at request promise, and I'm just determining whether I missed the content body or whatever that might be. So Yeah, parse body, so that should have worked fine. Automatically stringifies the body to JSON. So I could do type of to see if maybe it's a string. So it's an object, so I don't know why results isn't working. Oh, maybe I just had a typo. Yeah, maybe I just had a typo. So results.results works now. I must have typed something else. I'll look at it later. So from there, we need that daily price. We can get an array of daily prices by doing, daily prices, results.results. We can map over those results and just pull out the daily price. Let's not run it again. You see now we got all these daily prices. So 76, 76, 453, 101. We got an undefined in there, so we'll make sure we strip that out. So having done that, now we can simply do a filter. And in the filter, we're looking to exclude, so we'll do if there's no result, like undefined, then return false. But then we will take, r equals r. We got to replace anything that's not a number. So we'll use good old regex for that. Basically, anything that's not a number, we'll replace with just get rid of it, and then we can parse that as an int, putting a plus sign ahead, and then we can return. Oops, yeah, return true. Okay, so I have to map a second time. I did that wrong. So the filter, I just have to filter out stuff that's not anything. I need to then do a map so I can modify that value. So I'll map a second time. I will replace, r with whatever, and then I'll just return r. So now I have nothing. That's because up here I forgot to do return true. So now I have what I wanted. And keep in mind, this is how programming works. Everything doesn't go together perfect every time, even for me. So, there's always a debugging process, and you're kind of witnessing it. So I have all my values that I want right now. So from here, it's very simple. I have an array of all the prices. They're already integers. So now it's a matter of just summing all that and then taking the average. So from here, if I want the sum, I can do daily prices. I can do reduce. So this will give me the sum, which is showing as 5,180. And that's a matter of just dividing it by daily prices dot length. And that's our final value. So the average cost per night for that first page is $136.31. So now it's a matter of, make the text bigger. I will. I don't usually use that terminal when I work on stream. Okay, so you can see the final value is $136.31. So we can improve this even a little bit more if we want. We can maybe do, maybe we want 2 pages. So that was just one page of data, and we can actually output not only the sum but also calculation based on, and then daily, prices dot length, values. So that'll tell us how many actual values are part of this calculation. So calculation's based on 38 values. So how about we do a couple of these? So maybe we'll get 3 pages. So for I1, I less than 4, plus I. What we'll do is we'll have like total results, as an array. Then we'll insert I as the page number, so we get different results every time. From here, I'll do total result. I will the total results equals total results dot concat results dot result. So that's going to take basically 3 pages of results. It's going to concatenate them all into total results, and then rather than operating on results dot results, I'll operate on total results. So this should give me a lot more calculations. You can see it's taken a little longer because I had to make 3 requests this time. So you can see it's based on 114 values now, and the excuse me, and the average across all those is $160.30. And yeah, so this was a really quick script, to request some data from a site and do some analysis on it. And there was tons of data. There was tons of data in there. I mean, there was prices, there was lat long, there was text. You could analyze text. There was pictures. There was tons of data, and it's all public data. Like it's nothing you couldn't just come here and get. And it's going to be in the same order because on their site, when they request the first set of data, they're building all these cards. They're building this entire UI with that data. They're taking all of it and they're putting it into here. So if you could see it, on their card, you can also see it in their web service. Bobby J. Jaw, I see everyone. I see a node is writing procedurally. So yes, I am writing procedurally. I'm actually writing synchronously is what I'm doing. I'm using await and async. You don't have to do it this way. I could have done that by what's called a chain of promises, and I just chose not to this time. It felt to be easier to just do it in a loop. I could modify this to be I'll just modify it real quick. So traditional node style, if I were to do this traditionally, I would use the queue library, which gives me access to the promises that I need. So I'm going to just convert this program so it's not... Okay, did I get queue? Yeah, I did. All right. So to convert this to a non kind of await and async version, it's really not that much different. All I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to take queue, so require queue, and then I'm going to start a promise chain with queue.fcall. And then in here, I'm going to do chain equals chain dot then. Now in this, rather than doing the await, I'm going to take just the request piece. I'm going to return it so it blocks until it's done. And then this will be the result. From here, I will push the result onto that array and then just return null. So at that point, I can delete all that. And then I just need to add one last version, chain. So that'll ensure that I only run all this once everything is complete. So this should be the non-async and await version. So let's just test this out and see if that works. Look at that, crushed it. Of course, I missed out on average there. So what happened there? I know what happened. I'm gonna tell you. It's a little gotcha. So because of the way Node.js works, when you execute this async, it's going to execute all three of these. So I is going to be page 3 every single time. So the way you have to do that, there's a way to fix this. You have to use a self-executing function, and then you have to pass I into that self-executing function. So in this case, every time it executes, it's going to execute it with the proper I value. So we'll do this last attempt here, and it should be the 160.3. And it is. Well, 160.21. So it probably, since we've been talking, maybe they've added a property or something like that. So there, I did it await and async, and I also did it with, just traditional node style promises and whatnot. Can't you just use let I in the for loop? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Not sure. I guess depends on if it sees that as the. Oh, let's try that. Let I equals I. So let's see if we get the 160. Oops. The hell. Yeah, see, so it goes out of scope right away. So no, that won't work. There might be a better way to do that, but that's generally how I do it. If I have to actually execute like a number of promises in sync, and I actually need to. Oh, you're saying change the var in for to let. Nice. Hey man, thanks for that. You taught me something. Appreciate that. So it looks like if you use let inside a for loop, you don't have to go through all that self-executing function garbage. Nice. Thanks for that, man. So that's two versions. One's the async and await. Yeah, and that just goes to show you're never too old to learn stuff. So I just learned something. So that's the async version versus the callback version, and you could pick whatever one. It's okay to mix them. Like you don't have to do one or the other. However, if you want to use the async await version, you have to be using the latest version of Node. Okay, so we're at 45 minutes now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can modify. Let's look at more data here. See if there's anything else to mess with. So now that I have all the, oops, just crashed my deal. So now that I have the pricing, if I wanted to take an average of, I could take an average of bedrooms, take an average of reviews, I could take the average rating, I could do the weekly price. There's tons of different things that can be done. And yeah, so you just got to go out there and just explore what data you want to use and what you want to do with it. So it's, yeah, get out there and find people's web services and see what you can do. You can do the same sort of thing with data that's not delivered async. However, with that data, you have to, the way you would web scrape that kind of data is to take all of that information and then use something like Beautiful Soup for Python, or something like jQuery in Node.js, jQuery for Node.js, to just go through the tree Also, JS DOM is another good one I like. And from there, you find your elements, you loop through, but it's all kind of the same. In this case, this is really nice because it's JSON, and we like JSON very much because it's easy to work with. Okay, so I think it's time for 10 more minutes of questions, and then 10-15 minutes, and I think we're done here. So let me look at my thing here. Okay. Do you think I am... well, actually, if anybody has any questions about that one program, now would be a good time for that as well. Otherwise, I'll just answer general questions. So somebody said, do you think I am late into programming at age 22? Absolutely not. It's really never too late. Of course, it's obviously best to get started when you are, when you're younger. Of course, that's obviously ideal. But it's not like, if you didn't start when you were 14 or you're 15 or 16, then, suddenly you can't get moving on it. So it's perfectly fine. How would you loop through all the pages while results does not equal null? Okay, so you would first have to test and see how far the results go, and you can do that by putting, you can put like 999 in the page number and see if you get anything. And then what I would probably do is I would find what their response looks like when they don't have any values. Is it just an empty array? Is it just nothing? Does it fail because their system doesn't support it? What's their system going to do on the when it sends back results? And then once you figure out what their system does, then you simply look for that, and then just kill your program at that point. Or you can just say, give me the top 10. Have you ever created an API? If yes, do you have any source recommendations? Yes, I've created several APIs. I think the best thing I can say, you know what the best documentation is for writing a good API? It's probably the Stripe API. The Stripe API is just really, really, really solid, and it follows all the right naming, all the good naming stuff. It follows perfect API design. So just Google Stripe.js documentation, and here, I'll post it right now. Stripe docs. API reference. Okay, I just put it in the chat. This is like the perfect API. So if you make your API look and work like this one, then you're going to be off to a good start. What's curl? So think of curl as a way to consume, web services. And that web service could just be a typical web page. It could be something that serves you JSON. It could be anything. And so what I use it for is I use it if I want to just test out certain endpoints. It's kind of curl is the equivalent of going to Chrome, putting the URL in Chrome, and then opening view source. That's kind of the equivalent of what curl does. Hey, buddy. So the curl is a nice little tool. What distro do I use? I use Xubuntu 16.04, and when I decide I want to demolish my machine and start over, I'll do 18.04. I plan on studying computer science next year. Any tips? My tip would be to commit to the trade. So as you're studying computer science, go home and continue to study computer science, even if it's not in the context of your studies. The best programmers out there are the people that they do it because they really love it. They start in college. College whets their appetite. It gives them a number of sort of sort of feeds them a little bit about a lot of different things. Then from there, people sort of carve their own path forward to what they want to do in computer science. So my recommendation is, in tandem with your studies, also be doing projects on the side and just continue learning. Have you played with GraphQL at all? Not in a while. No. I actually, the last time I played it, I made an Instagram unfollow follow type bot thing that it basically logged into somebody's Instagram, and it would take all your followers, it would take all the people that you were following, and then it would compare the two, and then it would unfollow the people that weren't following you back. And obviously Facebook, that's Facebook's deal, and all their APIs are GraphQL. So that's sort of the last time. Any thoughts on it versus REST? I don't really know how to answer that. I think GraphQL it started out as a domain-specific answer to a domain-specific problem. So I don't even know that those two compete really. Are you going to work on any other Python videos? So my time is limited, as you know. I make a video typically once a week, sometimes twice a week, and if I try to do the videos people want. I'm also trying to build series, but series they're very time consuming, and I want to make sure that I do them right, because I'm all about quality. I want to make sure that everything is of the highest quality it can be. What are your thoughts on VS Code versus Atom? I sometimes use VS Code at my day job, and I don't dislike it. I dislike Microsoft, I guess. But VS Code versus Atom, I'm pretty sure VS Code is built in Electron. Atom is built in Electron. So, there's a finite, performance-wise, you're going to find that they're basically the same. Really what it comes down to is which packages do you like more? Do you like the packages that are available on Atom, or would you prefer the packages that are available on VS Code? So for me, I use Atom because I'm used to it, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily better. VS Code may have packages that Atom doesn't, and it might actually be better. But I use Atom because it's what I know, it's what I can move around quickest in, it's what I can get the job done quickest in. Your thoughts on Gitcoin? I don't know what that is, so I can't say anything about that. What did you study formerly? I studied electrical engineering. But it wasn't really later in my life. I self-taught myself from age 9 up to age 23. And then when I was 23, I went to college. So I'd already been programming, 14 years when I went to college. And that's why I didn't do computer science or computer engineering, is because I already knew how to do that. I've been doing it professionally now for over a decade. So I did electrical engineering instead. I thought that'd be a nice tangential kind of study for somebody that has already been doing, computer engineering his entire life. Gitcoin, the next gen freelance platform. Nope, I've never heard of that. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, I'm just going through the chat now here. Thanks for wonderful videos. Thanks for wonderful videos and stream. Keep it up. I will. Thank you, Alex Wood. Appreciate that. I will absolutely do my best to continue keeping it up. How you doing? I'm doing good. Thank you. Hey, I made chess. Can you make chess? That sounds like a really, really complex project. It's certainly one I would tackle. I would definitely tackle making a chess game. Yeah, good. Engineerman.org. Yeah, so lots of progress on that. And when I released the 50K video about 2 weeks ago, I talked a little bit about engineerman.org, and I should probably talk about it again now. I originally called it the baby of Reddit and Stack Overflow, but I'm realizing that it's going to be a lot more than that. It's going to be a place for all the resources that get cluttered and that get lost in Discord. It's going to be a kind of like a GitHub gist type thing where you can do snippets and there can be comments and score and whatnot. But then the actual Q&A and commenting piece I want engineerman.org to be associated with high quality. So that means ditching the culture of Stack Overflow. And I don't like how they do things. And I'm going to solve that on engineerman.org. And the purpose of the Reddit style commenting system is I want it to be based on, I want good ideas to go to the top, because I don't necessarily, I say Stack Overflow, but really what I should have said is Stack Exchange, because it's not just transactional questions that I want to see on there. I don't want people to say, I don't want people to only say, in PHP, how do I output a string? Oh, we'll use echo. Like that. Okay, that's fine, but I want things to turn into a discussion. I want that knowledge to roll up into a nice consumable piece of information. And then there's going to be a heavy focus on searching. It's going to be a heavy focus on contributions and awards. I'm going to do challenges on there. It's going to be a really cool site. It's going to be a great place to be. So it's exclusive to Discord members. So if you're not in the Discord yet, make sure you get a link. Where do I work? So I generally just do, I kind of just do whatever I want. I have something that I do more than everything else. I work in mobile app project management, and I also work in environmental monitoring, creating various sensors that do different thing. And then I do the channel, and then I do streams, but it's sort of just whatever I want. I've been programming a long time. I just choose my projects carefully now. Do you do LabVIEW? No, never heard of LabVIEW. I'm sorry. Could you perhaps add something similar to CodePen.io? It's a very good idea. One of the admins, if you would record that in engineerman.org on Discord, so I don't forget that. Have you learned multiple programming languages at the same time? That's a good question, actually, whoever asked that. So I learned, and sorry for Ghost Dog here, he wants to hang out in the stream. So I learned a dynamic language first. It's somewhat embarrassing to say that my first primary language, unfortunately, was PHP. And that was sort of a mistake for a couple of reasons. One, PHP is a terrible representation of what a good language should be. So that was mistake number one. The second mistake is that I never learned initially about types and things like that. So when I switched from PHP to something else like C or Java, one of those languages, it was a bit of a shell shock for me because I had never really worked. And again, this is a long time ago. This is over a decade ago. I had never worked in that, and I couldn't reason about this idea of, oh, why do I have to make a type, for my variable? In PHP, it just knows. And so I guess the reason I bring all that up is if you can, try to do it the hard way first. Learn and ahead of time compile a language like C, C++, or Java, even if you have no intention on making anything with it. It'll at least help you understand the fundamentals of programming. And when you go to a dynamic language, it'll be like, this is super easy. Oh, I don't have to do types? Well, this is fantastic, because I've been used to doing types my whole time. Okay, we got about 4 minutes left. Take a few more questions. Beginner project you'd suggest for people learning Python. Yeah, so beginning projects for people learning Python, the best projects you can do is, I like simple games, number guessing games, or, like Senior Ducky made a Hangman game. That's a little complex, but, make a simple game. Make a simple game, or find something in your life that needs automation. Like maybe you... I'm trying to think of a good one. It's tough to imagine, but take something you do on a repetitious basis and then try to try to use Python to solve that problem. Not only will you learn a lot in the process, but it'll be real rewarding. The other thing is make sure you take on projects that are harder than you think you can accomplish. Because if you keep doing beginner projects, you're never going to get any better. You gotta break out of that comfort zone and take a project that you see as just this lofty goal that you don't know if you'll ever complete, and make sure that pick a lofty goal and then go for it and do it. And when you finally finish it, it'll be the most rewarding thing of your life. Anybody laughing at you? How do you feel about? Yeah, I love this question. Oh man, it's a great one. How do you feel about JS being so big as it is now? I may be old and grumpy, but I miss it being primarily web use only. So yeah, so JavaScript has had quite the transformation. There's one myth right now, and that a lot of people think that Node.js was sort of the first attempt at server-side JavaScript, and it really wasn't actually. It was Netscape Navigator Enterprise was actually the very first implementation of server-side JavaScript. It's just back then they had to compete with languages like Java in the mid-90s, who were on the uprise, in the web space. So yeah, now we got Node.js on the back end. On the CoffeeScript page, I don't know if it's still on there. Let me look. Yeah, so let me open it here. So CoffeeScript, I thought said it best. Underneath the awkward Java-esque patina, JavaScript has always had a gorgeous heart. CoffeeScript was an attempt to expose the good parts of JavaScript in a simple way. And I thought that was that's a really good description. You got to keep in mind where JavaScript came from. JavaScript was in the browser. It's locked in the browser. Okay, it's standardized under ECMA, specifically ECMA 266. That's the standard in the browser. But how do you replace? You can't replace all that. You can't just make everybody update their browser. So you're sort of stuck with this really old, antiquated JavaScript. We don't have that problem on the back end because Node.js ships with Chromium's V8, and that's always the latest JavaScript implementation. So, but to answer your question directly, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that JavaScript's where it's at. I think eventually, there's enough, like in the days of Babel, where you could take ES6 and ES7 and transpile it into, a browser executable code. JavaScript is basically the assembly language of the web now. People write lots of languages that ultimately transpile to JavaScript in the same way that people write lots of languages that ultimately that compile down to assembly. So I think it's sort of the same thing. Okay, 2 more questions. I'm starting data science next year. Any advice? I don't know if this is good advice or not, but check out Kaggle. Kaggle is where they do these data science competitions, and there's a lot of smart stuff and a lot of smart people on there. It's like kaggle.com. All right, one more question. So Delphi, please let us know. Is anybody laughing at you? Software engineer? No, nobody laughs at me for that. They laugh at me for being ugly, but not a software engineer. Let's see. Can we be expecting Python Intermediate series? Yes. It's coming. I'm working on it. I just want to make sure it's good quality. All right, one more good question. What do you think of Delphi company? Trying to see a good question here. I'm going to answer this one. What do you think about ethical hacking boot camps, pre-course, or whatever you call it? So I think there's a place for it. Security is a huge thing in uh, oftentimes people look at security as the most important thing. I like to think that security is just as important as everything else. So there's obviously a place for ethical hacking, aka offensive security and pen testing. And the boot camps, I don't have details on the exact boot camp when CEA certified ethical hacking was sort of a thing. They offered it as this big long kind of online course, and then you had to go in person for a portion of it, and then take a test, and then poof, you were certified ethical hacker type of thing. And I think there's a place for those courses, and I think it's definitely something everybody should look at some point, just because it'll give you, if nothing else, it gives you a new appreciation for the software, because you're going to try to break that software. You're going to try to exploit things that are exploitable, and you're going to learn a lot in doing so. So that's not a great answer to that question. I'm sorry for that, but I think check it out. Check it out. Okay, we're pretty much at exactly 1 hour. Went over about 3 minutes. So, yeah, jump in the Discord and be on the lookout for engineerman.org. It's going to be sweet. And I hope everybody enjoyed the stream. I'll see you again in 2 weeks from now. All right, take care, everyone.